Oh, right. Let's see if everything is functional here. Looks like it should be. So, welcome to another Incus OS live stream. Going back to working on Incus OS itself this week with an actual Incus OS features. In this case, doing plumbing to get Ceph working. I'm gonna get that into more details around that shortly. First, let's just do the usual kind of go through of where we're at. Last week, I was working on the CLI, which has now been completed and landed. I'll actually show you what that looks like. If I take another terminal, I should have an instance. Does that work? Yeah, so that's my laptop running, a development laptop running Incus OS. And I should have the new CLI here, so admin OS, yeah, it's here. So I can do, there's an application subcommand to list subcommands. I can do on the, if I look at the laptop, it's running an old version. Remote switch laptop. Oops, typo. Okay. Let me just rebuild the code because there was a couple of small bugs in that code before it got merged, and I've not used, so the machine I'm using right now for streaming is not what I've used for most of the past week since the new building is basically functional here. So I've been mostly using my laptop with a dock down there, just waiting for the contractors to finish a few touch-ups, which will then let me move this desk and my actual office setup down there. And then the live stream is gonna move down there too. It also kind of looks like my camera is laggy. I don't know why. I also don't know if I can fix that easily. Because even the preview in OBS is like all kind of laggy, which is not good. Yeah, what are the chances I can fix that without losing the camera feed completely? I don't know. Oh, that's better. I'm moving my head and it actually moves in the preview. So, okay, let's keep it that way then. Yeah, that's better. Okay, cool. Not sure why the camera was laggy as hell, but anyway, that's fine. Well, so Jared is saying that like after the move we won't see the cat anymore. Well, I don't know. The new place actually will have the second building actually will have a cat tree and some stuff. So I might like he's usually awake around lunchtime. So when I'm alone, like when my wife isn't around, I might still pick up the cat and bring him down to the other building after lunch, like so he can chill over there a bit, and then we both go back to the house in the evening. Like it's definitely designed with the cat in mind. There is like some chill spots for him. There's like a water fountain and stuff for him to drink. So there will probably be a bring your cat to work thing at least a few days a week. So he might still show up in the live streams. Just depends where he ends up chilling in that building and whether he's gonna be near the camera or not. Alright, so I just rebuild the CLI. Let's see if it behaves now. So it's on the laptop. Admin OS, and I was doing applications list. Is that working now? Yeah, that seems a bit buggy, isn't it? Because I'm running the command, it's not supposed to require any argument, yet it wants to. Okay. Yeah, there's something wrong. Something is really wrong. Debug doesn't work. What the? I swear the stuff was working when I tested it. So maybe it's just the list stuff that doesn't work. Show definitely needs an extra argument. So if I do show LVM, hey, finally something that works. Okay. So if I do system, show network, that works. Okay. Applications, show Incus. That works. Okay, so list is what's busted. Okay, how did I not see that? List was definitely working at some point. Okay, well, I guess we can start by fixing that. And then we can look at the actual topic of the live stream, because that is not good. All right, let's pick a list command. Let's start with the applications one and see what it does. So applications list applications, format, pre-run, okay, that's fine. Required arguments 1, that's wrong. It should be 0 to 1, so I'll just fix the others. We need this one. Like the list ones don't strictly require an argument. Okay. All right, so that's the 2 ones fixed. That's fine. Now, if it's passed an argument, it assumes the remote is the argument. Okay. If not, that should be an empty string. Okay. And then it passes the thing, and then it queries. That's wrong. Okay, yeah, there's been some bad copy paste at some point. Because that is correct, but this part is wrong. It should just be that. I think I probably fixed the API URL stuff in a bunch of places and then just messed it up in list. So the other list is services list. Let's go look at that one. And yeah, this is nicely consistent. Wrong, but consistent. Okay. Let's try that. I'm very confused how that worked. It must have worked in my tests, and then I went through the static analysis errors and ended up realigning that chunk of code with the other subcommands and just messing it up in the process. Okay, because that works now. This is fine. This is fine. Yay. And if I point to another remote, it doesn't run Incus OS. Okay, so that works as expected. Cool. So I'm gonna need to send a PR for that because that's obviously wrong. Incus admin OS fix list commands. And this is what? Now, yeah, that key is actually plugged into the machine right now. So why are you not seeing it? Okay, now unplugged, replugged, now it sees it. Okay. I think this computer is having fun today. Fix list commands. Let's just rebase that on main. Okay, good. Why now? Now it says SSH. That doesn't see the same key that I just used for GPG. What the hell? Okay. That's gonna be annoying if SSH doesn't work. Yeah, sure enough. Okay. I'm gonna go do the good old-fashioned way of nuking all the agents running on this box. Okay. So all of you can go away, and then my bash RC usually fixes the agent stuff again, because that's not the first time I run into this mess. Nope. Didn't respawn an agent at all. What? Okay, let's go with the... There, you go away. Do I get a new agent now? Yes, okay. Getting somewhere. Yay. Okay, yeah, effectively use a YubiKey with a GPG agent to use a GPG signing key as my SSH key. So if it goes wrong, then I can't sign code and I can't SSH anymore. So anyway, restarted it all, it's working fine now. So with this fix done, let's just open the PR for it. Come on, GitHub, can do it. There we go. Fix list commands, very good. Okay. So that was the work on the CLI. We also did some tiny bit of extra work. So if we look at admin OS and you do, so obviously you can directly edit things. So system edit network, that opens it in a text editor. You can go and change fields. Like I can change this one to be my actual site name. There we go, save. It does the edit and then you show it's correct. I also went and added the debug command. So you can do debug log, which is also busted. Well, that's okay. I should have tried that one. I'm just gonna fit it in the same PR. Debug. That also worked. So, because that one I spent a bunch of time testing it. And yeah, it's got the exact same issue on the parsing. So I think it's literally, this one is probably just because it didn't support not having a remote name. That I can't believe I never tested. But the actual parsing after, that's definitely been tested. So I'll just rebuild this thing, I try it again. Yes. So what it does is it actually hits our debug endpoint that gives us the journal data as JSON. And then it does a bunch of parsing on the client side here to turn it back into something that's a bit more legible than just the JSON output. So there we go, effectively get to look at the journal that way. We'll be able to do like all kind of filtering and stuff on that data, which is convenient. Currently it's not there, but we can easily extend that command to let us look at just specific units, specific boots, specific time range, change output format to be, YAML JSON or the dist log format, and just gonna go between those. So I'm just gonna fix that one. Incus, OS don't require remote name in debug. Okay. I can push that one too. Here we go. Okay. So that's for what I did last week just after the stream. Now, if we go look at the other changes over the past week in Incus OS, there we go. So starting around here, the LVM output, service output has a lot more state details now, which have been added. So showing details on the VGs and PVs and all that kind of stuff. I don't have systems that I can show you that are using clustered LVM with Incus OS, but we've got production environments that do. So that makes it easier to get an idea of the state of everything. We've got a new endpoint in the storage API that allows for wiping a drive to be used cautiously, but it is possible to wipe a drive that way, so long as it's not part of a pool. Other changes fixed. There was a bug in the validation of signatures on system extensions, so I fixed that. There was a bad systemd update in Debian that was breaking networking for us, so we reverted that. And then we actually removed that hack, or we're about to remove that hack today because they fixed it in Debian now. But yeah, we had to deal with that little issue. We actually had an issue when manually triggering an update where if you hit the endpoint multiple times in rapid succession, multiple updates would be applied. The same updates would be applied multiple times in parallel, which would lead to corruption of the partition and require you to use recovery like the previous OS instead of being able to boot your newly updated system. So we fixed that now. There's a mutex that prevents concurrent updates. And we did some cleanup around networking last week, which caused a regression with the VLAN handling on specifically like effectively stripping the VLAN on egress in some scenarios. So we tracked that down yesterday afternoon and fixed it correctly. On the image server side, I had a promote command to move an image from one channel to another. Now we've got a command to do the reverse in case we need to pull an update for some reason. We can issue demote, which then strips a channel tag from an image. And that's basically it for what we have right now. There's a bunch of other stuff in flight if we load there. I had to use recovery mode as a customer for the first time yesterday and ran into a few issues. So we've got some bug fixes on that. We can see that our CD-ROM detection for the recovery, the rescue data was not really working. So with that, we've got that one fixed. There was also an issue where like immediately after running the rescue update mechanism, the system would reboot. But if the system reboot quickly, you would actually get into a loop because Incus OS would start again, run the rescue again, start again, run the rescue again. So we don't actually want the auto update. We just want like a prompt, and then we reboot the system manually afterwards. So that's been fixed. The detection for the CD-ROM was wrong. That's been fixed. Some issue with the ISO file system was also fixed. And when you are doing a rescue that way, the system would then complain on next boot that it's running a backup image, as in not the latest one, even though it is running the latest one. So there's just like a small fix in the state that's needed. So that's going through testing. It's actually approved and will automatically merge once the test passes. Next, I need to actually review that, but we're, as I mentioned before, we're adding both Operation Center and Migration Manager as alternate applications on top of Incus OS. So you can effectively deploy, just download an Incus OS image that gets you Operation Center or Migration Manager instead of Incus. And we've got the Operation Center one basically done. The Incus OS side things is not too bad for adding new applications. It's mostly because the system is completely locked down and you don't have a shell. We need to make sure that the application itself, in this case Operation Center, can be entirely driven through its API in a reliable way. Like we don't want to do an API call and then on the next reboot, the config file is no longer valid and the system is bricked and we've got no way to fix it. So we did a bunch of work in both Migration Manager and Operation Center to make sure that all their config is exposed through the API, that all of the config changes are correctly validated through the API before they hit disk, and some other things like making sure that they run with like effectively a budget of disk space, so can't run the system out of disk space. Also that they can technically initialize even if the system is completely out of disk space. Some kind of small items we make sure to guarantee that Incus OS is not gonna go bad with those applications. So that's gonna be the next one I need to kind of review and land, at which point we'll have most of the same happening to Migration Manager next. And then we've got kind of across all three projects, a bunch of documentation stuff we're looking at doing. So setting up things for documentation, setting up Swagger for API documentation, moving a bunch of our existing markdown docs to be proper files in Sphinx, and then start rendering the documentation, publish it on website, and just make it easier for people to actually get started in using this. So that's kind of where we're at. Now we've got, obviously, as mentioned, like a few things kind of ongoing on the to-do list. A bunch of them around documentation that are being assigned, the other two applications, and then some smaller things we want to look at. But actually there's something else we discussed that doesn't have an issue right now that we should add. So let me just fix that real quick with you. So this is gonna be a feature. Doesn't need any of that. Type feature here. Implement backup, restore, factory reset APIs. Should have endpoints both at the system and application level to download a backup of the configuration, as well as support for restoring such a backup, or just performing a factory reset of the system or application. All right. So it's pretty self-explanatory there. It's just we want to have the ability to fetch a effectively like a sanitized version of the configuration or of the either of the system or the configuration data of an application, and then be able to restore that, as well as being able to just clear whatever is there, effectively allowing for a reset of the system, potentially with some granularity around what we want to reset. That's something that's coming up with Operation Center as it drives Incus OS to assemble clusters. A lot of what it does, it can do and undo if something goes wrong, but the actual join the cluster type phase, that's very much harder to fully reset and reattempt. The easiest is actually to fully kick out the machine from the cluster if it's partly joined, and then perform a factory reset on the machine and then attempt the join again. We currently don't have a way to do that, so that's part of the idea behind that, as well as helping with recovering a system that had like a hardware failure or something like that. I should actually link, there's another issue that reminded me of that, the ability, consider recovery scenarios when main drive fails. So 301 is kind of related to that. Possibly related to 301 there. Okay. So that's kind of where we're at and what GitHub is doing now. It's trying to post my comment. I'm not sure if it's succeeding. Having a bit of a rough time with GitHub occasionally these days. Yeah, really no idea if it actually saved the comment. Let's just refresh the page and see. Yeah, it's there. Okay, we're good. So anyway, that's where we're at. That's some of the stuff that's coming very soon. And for today, as I mentioned in the stream title, we don't actually have an issue for that. My goal is to start adding Ceph support to Incus OS. Down the line, I'd like to also do Linstor, but we're going to start with Ceph because it's slightly easier. By that, I mean that for Ceph, what we really only need are two commands, the Ceph command, the RBD command. We need these two installed and available to the Incus application, and we need some system level configuration. So we're gonna need a service effectively for that, that we can configure with the clusters we want to connect to and provide credentials and some basic system config. So that's kind of the idea. It's gonna be a bit of a weird one because on the face of it, it's an extra service. That's pretty easy. We've got a bunch of those already. But it's a service that will only be available if the Incus application is installed. The reason for that is Ceph pulls, I'm going to recheck that in a minute, but last I checked, the Ceph command and the RBD command. RBD, I believe, is written in C. Ceph is written in Python. We want to keep the base OS image as small as possible, and we don't want to bring in Python into the base image because that would grow it more than we'd like and make some amount of security updates and the like a bit more problematic. I don't mind bringing it into the Incus application layer too much because we can update that layer without needing a system reboot. So it's slightly less bad if there's something Python related and that extra surface requires more frequent updates, we can handle it, it's fine. So anyway, that means that the service which is defined at the system level instead of Incus OSD should only show up if the Incus application is installed. So we're gonna need to set up some amount of dependency type stuff between application and services. Like the easy way out there would be, hey, you just put a check for like, is Incus in the state application list? Possibly that might be a way to do it. We might also put something that I want something a bit cleaner. I want the services to be a bit more standalone, so it might be that the services will now grow a check dependency function or something like that would then run, and only if that says that they're good would they be included in the service list. Something along those lines, so that we can quickly skip the services that shouldn't show up and have the rest show up and not have too much hard-coded all over the place. So anyways, we want to get those two commands instead of the application layer. We want a service to handle configuration that will create etc Ceph and the various .conf and .keyring files in there. At which point Incus should be happy and be able to connect to Ceph. So that's the basic idea. Let's see if we can make it happen. The first thing is I want to look at the state of Ceph in Debian 13 because I actually haven't done that yet. So I'm just gonna create a container. I don't need a VM for that. And I just want to look at what do I need to install to get the two commands I actually care about. Traditionally, that would have been the Ceph command, package. No install recommend. Oops, typo. Okay. All right, so what does that put in? That puts in a bunch of stuff we should already have, but it, as mentioned, it does pull Python 3 and a bunch of Python packages. It's not too bad. Most of them are pretty core stuff like request, YAML and stuff is fine. And then it pulls the actual Ceph one. So Ceph outparse, Ceph common, Ceph fs, RBD, Rados. So it's not too bad as far as dependencies go. Then Python itself then pulls a bunch more libraries and things in. It's gonna grow the Incus application size a bit, but not by too much, I think. Like it says, download size is 47.4 megs, which is not small. Hopefully it doesn't grow the application by that much, because maybe we're better compressed than the Debian packages are. I don't know. We'll see. I also wanted to make sure that this actually gets me what I need, which I think it will. Like it's not putting any other Ceph packages, which is good. So let's install that and see if we've got both the Ceph and the RBD command out of it, because that's what I want. Yeah, but like so it did show the space needed, but because everything is compressed on our side, like everything using Z standard and even our root file system and everything is compressed. We should be closer to the compressed size than the unpacked size as far as what we actually see as impact. But we'll be able to tell pretty quickly because we can compare the size of the application as we have it currently on the image server to what we're gonna get with that stuff added. The other thing is we do have a hook to go and delete a bunch of stuff from the system to make it smaller. We're not currently using that on the Incus application, but we might start doing that to shrink and remove some of that stuff. Like maybe we don't need all of those Python modules, even if they are brought in as dependencies. We might be able to cut some stuff out and save a bit of space. I don't know, we'll see. First, we need to kind of see what the actual impact looks like and see whether we need to do anything about it. So that's installed now. I need the RBD command, I need the Ceph command. Okay, Ceph is complaining about can't read file. That's fine, that just means we don't have any configuration in here. Yeah, that's good. The Ceph error is quite terrible, but it makes sense and both commands work. So we just need, that means we just need Ceph command to be installed and we should be okay. Now if we go into the Incus OS repo, just make sure that this is up to date. It is, and then grab my branch, rebase that, okay. And let's just do the actual addition. So I've not actually played with macOSI in a little while, so let's see if I can figure it out still. Incus macosi.conf. So I mean, this one literally installs packages by hand like that, which is, well, I guess that works, but I don't remember why we do it quite that way. Anyways, let's just be lazy and just do it that way for now. But like for the base image, we mostly install stuff using .conf files within macOSI. This one, I think, because we needed the keyring and everything in place, we've done it through a script. And I guess since we needed to run apt-get update anyways, we figured we could just also install the packages, which is fair enough. Instead of trying to time things right with macOSI. So anyway, I'll just install Ceph command that way, that's fine. That's gonna commit on its own, so we can just do that. Incus add Ceph command. And then we need to build ourselves an ISO. Let me just clean up if we got any images already. Output, yeah. So I'm just gonna clean things up a bit. So we only have our one image. We've got, okay. I don't remember if I'm running, you know what, I'm just gonna wipe these two. Because occasionally I test with staging keys and the like for the production servers. So I want to make sure that I'm actually building a proper test build and not something with a key that looks valid and that might confuse Incus OS later on. So the idea here is that we're just gonna go through a full build. I haven't done one of those on stream in a little while. So that should build us a new test image that we can then run and then build up the service part of this. It should be pretty easy to test that the dependencies and stuff work just on their own and by just pushing the config files directly into the system. And if that behaves, then that gives us the idea for what to do as a service. I don't think I'm going to have time to build up the full service, but I'm hoping we can at least get Ceph working in the test environment here by just pushing things by hand, and then kind of work on the structure for the service config, because that's where there's a bit more extra complexity with Ceph. Ceph can have multiple clusters, and you can have, in theory, multiple keyrings per cluster, and then for each of those clusters, you might want different local settings for like what servers to connect to, but also things like how much memory do you want to use for VM write caching and that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of complexity. I don't want to expose the entirety of the ceph.conf syntax to the user because there's some stuff in there that we don't really want to expose from a security standpoint. But we need to still have enough flexibility to expose what's most relevant and give us a bit of wiggle room to add more things. So inside of Incus OS image build, we do not use the recommends. And I believe my attempt earlier, let's see if I still have enough back scroll. Yeah, not quite. Maybe I still have it in the history. I believe this did not install with no recommends. Yeah, no recommends. Because there was a question on the in the chat about whether that included the recommends. So no, it didn't. We generally don't like pulling recommends. So image is building. We'll have to figure out the syntax for the API effectively. So the service, if we look at I don't know, NVMe for as an example, that structure that's for NVMe, we need to come up with a similar one for Ceph. It's going to be quite a bit more complex with nested structs in there to really kind of model what we want for Ceph. Now, as far as my test environment goes, let me switch back to my local. All right, yeah, so there's still on the recommends, so there's a question of like the script itself did not specify no install recommends. That's correct. And I believe that's not needed because we have the global config through macOS I that would effectively cause the I need to actually check whether that's the case, but my expectation is that it would put a etc apt conf.d type thing in place, like I've got on my own system, which is recommends false, adjusts false, and just sets it kind of globally, so you don't need to think about it every time. I mean, it is a good point, and we'd probably want to check. I mean, first of all, what would be the difference? Is there a difference in this scenario? Wrong project, but if I switch back to, oops. I actually wonder what I was, the D13 thing is on my laptop, I think. Because I switched remote temporarily earlier to the laptop. Yeah, it's here, okay. So if we just recreate that one. Okay, and we do apt install Ceph command just on its own. What does that look like? It looks like this. no install recommends. Okay, so it's those packages and their dependencies would have been pulled. This is InfiniBand, and I'm not too sure what we're doing with authentication and LDAP stuff, but yeah, it's not too massive. Space needed 185, space needed 187. So yeah, at least in this scenario, the recommends would not make a big difference. They make a bigger difference in some other cases, like for Incus itself. If you don't install recommends, I think it's skipping some of the graphical libraries and stuff that we don't really need. So there's a bit of a benefit there. All right. Image is still building. So anyway, I was showing you the, if I go back to local, I effectively used Incus deploy to get myself a cluster here that's got all the storage technologies enabled. So we've got Linstor, we've got local ZFS, we've got Ceph, and we've got clustered LVM. I don't actually want to run stuff on that cluster, but I want to kind of abuse its Ceph and eventually its Linstor setup so that we can test that with Incus OS without needing to deploy yet another Ceph deployment or something just for that. So that effectively has a Ceph cluster running, 5 servers, 2 OSDs per servers. I think the state was all nice and clean mostly. Yeah, just some missing Python dependency for one of the Ceph plugins. Doesn't matter for us. This one then does have a ceph.conf and a Ceph client admin keyring. So that's kind of what we'll need to show through the config is for the keyring, gonna need a name and a key. The caps we can ignore effectively because that's mostly a server-side thing. And then for the cluster config, which is what we're looking at here, there's the cluster FSID that we kind of need. The initial list of monitors. I don't think this one is needed, but we do need that. So the list of actual monitors, which would probably set up as like a structured thing in the config, like what we do with NVMe over TCP or iSCSI, or even the USB IP stuff. So that would be the main list that you need to configure for your cluster. So I think if we've got like a list of clusters in the config, each cluster would have a name. The default just being Ceph, effectively, and then an FSID, a list of monitors and ports. This doesn't matter, that's not a client thing. Those don't matter, that's not a client stuff. But then the cluster config might want to have that, which is the configuration for librd caching that we use for virtual machines. And we also need a keyring for at least one user. I don't know if we want to support multiple keyrings. We might effectively have a nested struct under the cluster, which would then give us for each user what the keyring is effectively, and you'd get to use multiple different keyrings. It's that most folks using Ceph with Incus don't really go crazy on that. They tend to have one cluster and they tend to use one key. In some cases, just the cluster admin key. In some other cases, they use a restricted key with the right RBD permissions for what Incus uses. That's the most common thing, but it's not impossible too that someone would have an Incus cluster that talks to one Ceph cluster, but has multiple pools, and then for each storage pool, they have a different keyring. That is possible. It doesn't bring you much as far as security in that kind of scenario, but that's possible. So we might want to still allow a bit of flexibility in there so that it's possible to do those kind of things with the config, just to avoid having to redefine the whole thing later once people actually want to use that. Anyway, image has built, so let's go look at what that looks like. Make OSI output, and then the incus.write, what I'm wondering. So uncompressed 768 megs for the Incus application. What did that look like before? That's pretty big, to be fair. I'm just gonna go ahead and download the compressed version of it for the most recent image we have. Here, it's downloading. And it's 218 megs compressed right now. So let's just look at the uncompressed size of it. $620. Okay, so yeah, we're adding a good chunk of extra size. Okay, so we're shipping it as gzip for some reason. I'm not sure why we picked that, but I must have picked it for some reason. Let me check how we do the compression. gzip-9. Okay. So if we compress macOS output incus raw, I'm just gonna re-download that one to have its correct compression, the same we have on the image server. Okay, just download it again. So that's the current one from the current image server, and we'll see what size we get once the other one is compressed. Because the on-disk size, nobody really cares. Like we've got, for that partition, we've got a guaranteed 50 gigs. So we've got more than enough space. It's not a problem. The download size matters slightly more. We don't want people downloading, a gig plus every time there's an update. That'd be bad. So we're trying to keep things reasonably small there. And yeah, currently we do gzip for all of those. Might want to switch to like zstandard or something, but at the same time, it's one of those environments where we could actually go kind of crazy with xz or something or not, because we can take the compression time on our side. It doesn't really matter, so long as the thing is small and it decompresses reasonably quickly. Okay, compressed. What does that look like now? macOS output incus raw 273. Okay, so we're looking at, what's that, 55 megs? For adding Python and Ceph. It's not great. I would really wish that they didn't use that they didn't require all of Python like they do. Like from what I remember, the RBD command I think is C, and Ceph is Python, but with most of it done through C extension modules. So it would be nice if we didn't need to do that. There's an alternative that would be to use the Go binding for libceph directly from within Incus, so we don't need to use the Ceph command. The problem with that is that it would be cgo, which means now we've got the issue of everyone needing to have libceph installed on a system, even if they don't use Ceph. So it makes it a bit worse for everyone to make it better in this scenario. And yeah, I mean, we're basically at the point where space is pretty cheap. And as much as it's annoying having to download an extra 50 megs, we can take the hit for now, and we can always look at other compression options. Actually makes me wonder, so I won't keep doing that for too long, but what does that look like if we do zstandard on this guy? Don't remember. Does it do the compressed level thing? Yeah, okay. Default is 3. I can just try the default, see what that looks like already. 260. It's always funny because it compresses so much faster, and then you end up with a smaller size out on top of that. So that's pretty neat. We might do this. We might want to use this standard. So the max level is 19. Which is, I don't remember if it's kind of works the same way with gzip, where you can go above 9. Is gzip 9 the maximum? Or is it just what I'm used to using? 9 is best. Okay, so 9 is the maximum. So I guess the equivalent would be a 19 for this standard. Let's see. definitely a lot slower at that point, which is kind of what we expect. And yeah, and we use XZ for the image server. So the image server is XZ-9, which is insane as far as the time it takes to compress. But at the time was giving us the smallest sizes. And the decompression time wasn't too bad on the client side. So that's what we did. But that's back, almost a decade ago when we picked that stuff for XD and now Incus. This standard was not widely supported back then. Now it is, and from what I've seen, is generally quite a bit faster than XZ and compressing better or similar level. So let's see what we get for that one. 70 compressing pretty well now. It's the kind of thing where, like, if passing -19 gets us 250 something, it's simply not worth the effort. If it gets us closer to 200, then it's worth the extra time. 211, yeah, that's pretty good. It actually does 212. So that would be interesting, because that would mean, yeah, if we combine adding Ceph with switching compression mechanism, then we would, Ceph would be free effectively, which is kind of interesting. That might be something worth considering. I don't know if, okay, do I have an Incus OS VM running right now? Because I don't know if we've got the standard in the base. That's the other thing. Incus OS bash. If we need to also install the standard, that'd be, I mean, that's not bad, but that would make things slightly worse. Yeah, we don't have the standard. So we need to add the standard to the base. Let that sit for a while, and then we'd be able to actually go and move to it. I think the other reason why we're doing gzip right now is because we probably decompress in Go. We probably use Go compress /gzip or whatever it is, and we decompress as we download the file. So we download the file from the internet, we send it through a multi-reader. One part of the reader does the hashing, the other part of the reader goes through the decompressor and then writes straight to disk. So we never download the file and then decompress it. We can still do that with something like this standard, but we're gonna need to put it as like spawn the sub process, wire in, stud in, stud out through it, to then have it write to disk while decompressing. That's fine, we can definitely do that. It's just more work. But it's pretty interesting because, yeah, that suggests that if we start rolling out this standard, add support for it, we could effectively make that extra size increase disappear in this case. Obviously, we could also use this standard without adding Ceph, at which point the current image would shrink even more. But anyways, all right, that was enough of a tangent. The image has been built. Let me just check what the current state of things is. Incus, we have an Incus raw. Yeah, Incus raw is there. We still have the standard one, but the main uncompressed one exists, which is good. That's what we need. Now I should be able to do make test ISO. Here we go. So I'm just gonna go and what's going on here? Didn't find a root device. Yeah, I mean, that might just be an artifact of me using the weird development project thing here. Root. So if I do tests, I'm just gonna temporarily patch the script to make it behave. Root size. Or I guess what the other way I could do it is if I look at my default profile, if I don't have anything. Oh, but they all use it. Okay, fine. So just do storage default. That should do the trick, I think, maybe. Let's try out. I don't know if I'm gonna run into trouble for running both -- storage and the -d root option at the same time. That's why I wasn't sure when editing that makefile. So we'll see if it does what we want. Yep, got created, we're good. Only issue is the VM doesn't have any network, so I need to fix that too. Device add, that's Incus OS, 0, next, network, default, yeah. What? Failed to load, Incus BR0. There we go. Now it's got the network card. Going through the install, slightly messed up screen here, but it's fine. Okay. So that should get us Incus OS running, but without any application at this point. So we definitely won't have Ceph. And then we just need to use, I think there's another make target to load the test applications. So then that will push the Incus application in there and load it. Okay, so it's generating a recovery key. Sure. Let's see if the network is functional. That's always a bit of a fun one here. Yeah, I should actually have put it on the other network card. I keep forgetting that. Test Incus OS. My Incus BR0 is not very Incus OS compatible. BR1 works better. Let's see. It will probably fail with a timeout and then retry, and then it should succeed, maybe. Let's see. Oh, we can just restart that VM. That'll work too. Yeah, just restart this guy. It's gonna be easier. Incus. Okay, never mind. It just went system ready. Okay. So we're good. And now make test applications, I think is the command. Yeah, so that's pushing Incus in there. Try push debug and then run the command to trigger an update. So let's go look at what we have. Console test Incus OS, VGA output. All right, what did we get? It unpacked Incus, starting application, initializing. Okay. So we might have Incus up and running at this point. Let's see. Yep, Incus is running. Okay. The Ceph command exists, the RBD command exists. All right, so we're talking. The image is effectively fine. We've got the extra commands. Now let's see if we can make that actually connect to Ceph. So let's see Ceph does not exist. That's fine. I'm just gonna create the folder, and then I'm gonna go in one of the VMs that's running on Ceph, in that Incus deploy cluster, and we're gonna go, and from that VM we want to pull those two files. So ceph.conf and Ceph client admin keyring. So we fetch these two, and then we push them. So ceph.conf, Ceph client admin keyring, push those into test Incus OS. Let's say Ceph. Okay. I can delete them, don't need them here anymore. Exec, just check that this all looks good. Yep, they're in here. Oh, wrong server. I'm like, that's weird. What's the third file? It shouldn't be there. That's more like it. Okay, the ownership is all kind of wacky, so let's go fix that. All right, that looks correct. That's basically what we would want the service logic to put in place. So now that we have that, can we use it? So Incus, first thing, Ceph status. Ain't working. Okay, so the issue is that I'm not on the correct network. Let me fix that. So we'll stop testing Incus OS and go look at what the network config is like on, say, server 01. Server 01, expanded config. Okay. There's both so it's on Incus BR0. It's on a network that keeps giving us trouble. And this is, okay, so I need to make it work on Incus BR0, basically. Okay, we can make that work. Let's do it. The reason why that network is kind of flaky is because of me running on IPv6 only here, and that network having both stacks, and then IPv4 looks like it's working, but it's not quite working, and that causes some weirdness. So I think what I need to do is actually let Incus OS start up fully on Incus BR1, which is what it's on right now. To do bring up network. There we go. Fine. And then once it's up, we can go and do. I don't have it as a remote, so that's slightly annoying. Remote and test Incus OS, I guess. And then whatever the IP address is for this guy, so it's on this here. Huh. Oh yeah, I guess it doesn't. I didn't push a seed, so it doesn't trust me. Okay, let's fix that. Incus client cert into Incus OS. I'm just gonna command the folder. Yes, go in there. Incus OS slash Incus config trust add certificate client. What did I type for now? Certificate is a bit messed up. There we go. Okay, now can I edit as a remote? Yes. Incus admin OS system edit network on Incus OS. What did I mess up now? Oh yeah, it's the section is the arguments, so like this. And it's not connecting, connection refused. Why? What's going on now? Is it applying an update or something? What's going on? No, system ready. I could add the remote, so clearly. Oh, it's because it's a different name. What did I use as the name for the remote? Test-Incus OS. That's why. I've got too many of those. Here we go. That works. Okay. So it's currently doing DHCP4 and Slack. We're gonna want to get rid of DHCP4, so just do IPv6 only. ENP5S0 show required for online says no, even though it's technically more of a yes in this case. Let's do that. Okay, so network has been reconfigured that way. Now if I do config edit test Incus, what's it named? Test Incus OS like that. And I move it back to Incus BR0. And we restart this guy. It's actually a decent chance it will come online this time around. And it will be then on the same network as the Ceph cluster, which should help with testing Ceph. Okay, here we go, starting up, bringing up network. Please, please, please. Didn't put an IPv6 yet, that's weird. What's going on? There's really something wrong with that Incus BR0 network that's just triggering this thing. It's not the first time, I just don't get why it's not causing other issues. Yeah, like it's not getting an IPv6 address, even though it really should be. Like all of the others had no problem getting an IPv6 address, so I'm kind of confused. Is there anything wrong with the network config? Okay, BGP config IPv4, IPv6. There's no not an IPv6. It should just work. It clearly doesn't, but it should just work. It's getting slightly frustrating. Especially because Incus BR1 is basically the same config and it works. Because I just want connectivity to the Ceph cluster. I really don't care how. That's not the point of today's stream, to debug this mess. But yeah, it's just boot looping on this stuff. It's not coming online. Okay. Just edit the VM again, move it back to BR1. I'm tempted to just give it a second NIC on the other one, and then give it a static IP on BR0 that way, and just call it done. It will probably be, come on, it'll probably be the easiest. Okay, so if I do that, are you kidding me? They're not connected to the same network. What the hell? One is BR0, the other one is BR1. They are not the same network. Why are you complaining? Just stop this thing and go fix the config when it's not running, maybe. Okay, and we start this thing now. Okay, I mean the config is reversed from what I want actually. Just stop this thing again. All right, 0 needs to be on BR1 because that's the one that works for it. Why? Okay, let me just show the full config. There might be multiple NICs going on and something else messing things up here. Config show expanded. No. ETH0 is on Incus BR0, ETH1 is on BR1, which is again the reverse from what we want. Why? I'm just gonna change the database at this point. I'm getting really tired of this. It doesn't want to save this change. And they're not on the same network. Anyway, the other way we can get rid of that thing is just by telling it I don't care about DNS. At which point it won't complain about this anymore. I don't know why it thinks it's on the same network. It's clearly not, but anyway. So that's gonna start back up. Yeah, so the DNS mode key, it configures whether Incus is in charge of creating DNS records or not for the different interfaces. And if it sees the same, seriously, still not getting network. If it sees the same NIC multiple times, the same network multiple times, it can't create the DNS record, so it fails. But in this case, I'm connecting to 2 different networks. There should not be that problem at all, and I don't know why it's complaining. Anyway, the network is still not coming online, which is starting to really annoy me because we've got the 2 NICs. The first one, which is 31DF, I'm just checking that we agree on which is which. ETH0 31DF is connecting to Incus BR1, which is the one it had no problem connecting to, like, 2 minutes ago. And now it's complaining about network not working again. I really don't get why. I'm getting quite annoyed. That's not what we're here to debug. We're here to work on Ceph. Okay, let's just get rid of that other network and see if it's just on the one it likes, if it actually gets an IP finally. Just reboot this thing. But I suspect that part of the issue might be that it has some issue handling slack. So the stateless to configure IPv6 on its own. And in this case, I've disabled IPv4, so now it's just gonna fail getting an IPv6 and just getting into that loop again, which is a bit of a problem. Yeah. It fills very quickly too, so that's not good. Like, it doesn't even try to bring the link up, at which point I don't know how it will ever get an IP address if it doesn't bring the link up. Okay, now I bring the link up and immediately it gets an IP address. Still times out, huh? Don't know why it's timing out, but it's still timing out somehow. Okay, what's the error it's actually showing? Time out waiting for UDEV to rename interfaces. Okay, what do you want UDEV to rename the interface for at this point? It's got the correct name. There's some failures here. That's really annoying. Okay, let's just, what nick are we on right now? Test Incus OS, am I on BR1? Okay, so that should be the one that works. Now let's go look at the state and just yank out the network config, reboot, and let it regenerate. That should give us the post-install state, and that should work. System network. So anything that's got system network, I want it gone. Okay. Yeah, so that's gone from the config. Now restart. Let's see if we get this thing back online. Yay, okay. So that is online now. Still on the wrong network, but it's online. And now that it's on the wrong network, hopefully I can just go and add another interface. It's on the correct network this time around. Yeah, it's here. That's the IP address, the MAC address. And then if I do network, edit this guy, did it find a different IP address and that's no longer working. So it's what's up now. Testing Incus OS was on A1 4E. Yeah, so I think part of what I did changed the MAC address and caused a whole whack ton of confusion with Incus. Oh, hold on. Yeah, no, it is on the TH1. Okay, that's fine. The subnet tripped me for a sec here. Test Incus OS, so it's gonna go change that IP address here with the actual one it has. Okay. Yay, I can edit the network config, that's good. Now I want to see the MAC address for that new network device here. I'm just gonna put a static IP in that network and call it done. So address is what was the subnet for the others? C250 like that. And then hardware address is that. Name, I don't really care, but ENP6 is 0, I guess. Required for online, very much not. Okay. Yay, now we've got an IP in the right subnet. That took a while. Let's see. Now Ceph status. Nah, would have been too easy. So why is that not working now? I won't have ping installed because that would be too easy. If I go the other way around, so from this guy, I want to ping this guy. Okay, so that pings, that's good. Now that would imply that this should work too. At least those I can install cpdump on, so that would help. It was 1000, so this. Hey, okay, so we are getting request. And we are responding. So that should be fine. Is there an MTU thing going on? What are we on? What's the MTU here? 1500. No, that's not the problem. PV6 address is here and it seems okay. There's no firewalling, obviously. I think it's behaving very much like we can't respond to this guy. What happens if I try to connect to 8443 on it? Works fine. So what the hell? Need to look at the speed up more closely, I guess. Oh, this time it decided to work, really? Okay. All right. Well, it works. Okay, let's see if it works well enough for Incus to use it. Create Ceph. Test Ceph source Incus OS. Let's try it out. Okay, storage pool created. That's good. Ceph OSD pool LS. Yep, Incus Bamator, Incus OS. Okay, now let's try to launch something on there. Storage test. So that's gonna then do a work ton of writes through that in theory. Yeah, here we go. So that's RBD doing unpacking. There's still something weird going on with the network. This should go much faster than it is, but whatever. Okay. So that is now running on Ceph on top of Incus OS. Okay. So that was the basics. Is all perfectly sane. Now the next part, and I'm gonna have to do that off stream because the stream is taking too long as it is to effectively just automate that part. So that's the kind of easy part of it, to be honest. So if we look at the code base here, Incus OS internal services, we want to take something that's mostly similar. So I take NVMe probably, called that service Ceph. We go into service Ceph, we replace all the NVMe stuff with Ceph, and all of the lowercase NVMe stuff with Ceph. Okay. Then the get config stuff won't change too much. There's no such thing as runtime details we need to fill in, so we can just strip that. Yeah, we'll probably initialize a list of targets from empty, so that's fine. During update, there's no there's no service really per se. So stop or start doesn't really matter. Stop will be a no op. Like there won't be an enable. I don't think there's going to be an enabled flag on that service like there is for others, because well, there might be one just for consistency. I've got to check if they all have an enabled flag. We will put one here too, just so we can eventually do a table that show if the service is enabled or not. But if it's enabled, all that would really do is whether we populate /etc or not. So basically, stop will wipe /etc, start will generate its content. That's basically it. So in this case, that would be remove Ceph config. So we'll do like a remove all of this. So that's the stop code. And then the start code would be indeed creating the Ceph folder. And then we need to create, like do a loop and create everything else. So that's basically kind of like that. Generates the targets and keyrings. So we'd go over the config, over the configured targets, fill that in, and then we're good because there's no connection or anything. It's literally just filling in the config. Whether it should start, we check if it's enabled, that's fine. There's no such thing as init, struct, or anything like that. So that's most of the skeleton for that service. The bulk of it will be the actual setting up the config structs and then just doing the templating of the config files down here. So that's very simple. There's a hooking point here. So Ceph can go there. And then we need a loader down here. Okay. And that's basically it. Like that's all of the boilerplate for the service. I said just need to template the two files. And then actually go and fill in the trickier part is going to be the API. So filling in a system, like within service, effectively filling in the Ceph version of that. That's going to be the part that will take a bit of thinking to just make sure we don't have a problem down the line. But yeah, by and large, that should be fine. Get the same idea for the structure. We can just rename things. The state part does not exist with Ceph, so that goes away. And then the targets, they will be different, but that's basically the logic. Let's see what that looks like now. Make Incus OS. Okay, it does not build, which is fine. Like there are obviously a few errors. Would have been kind of impressive if the random copy paste and sed would actually have made everything work. What's it complaining about? State services undefined. All right, yeah, I didn't update the state struct. Where's that these days? I don't actually remember. Is it in API? Or is it still, it's probably still in internal state. Struct here. NVMe is here. Just need to add Ceph here. API, service Ceph, JSON, Ceph, something like that. And a lot more of it built now. So str conf, strings, what else? Time, UUID is a process, okay. So all that can go away. Here we go. 63. Just missing that. Okay. 84. Define not used. Yeah. I can just remove that for now. There we go. Yay, and it builds. Static analysis. Let's see if that stuff is already. Okay, just complaining I'm not using the contexts in either of the functions, which I don't think I ever will because I'm not running any subcommands or anything that needs context. So yeah, those two can go away. And that passes. All right, so that's basically the code change for the service. I said like the tricky part will be figuring out the API and then just templating the file, but that is basically adding this extra service. Okay, the makefile stuff we can remove. It was a local hack. Okay, so yeah, as mentioned, this part here that's what needs work to actually have the different clusters and keyrings. Then this one is basically in its final state, the loader. That's fine, we're all good. And then the service itself. The get command should be mostly okay. That might need a small tweak once the things is changed to be a list of clusters and keyrings, but that should be okay. Update is basically good. We save the state, we wipe everything, we put the new config, we start it back up. So that effectively regenerates etc Ceph, which is fine. That's what we want. Stop, it wipes /etc Ceph, that's fine. Start, that's where there's a bit of a to-do here to fill that one in. And the state struct is good. So that's basically the code change for this. It's just a bit more work, and then you're gonna, that I'll put in later for the struct, and then you see a PR that adds that logic and will be good. So that's basically all that's needed to add Ceph and make it work. There's a question from Jared if we are allowed to do comments at all in the code base when we push out a release, and apparently not. I don't remember if to do is flagged by Golang CI lint, maybe not. Fix me definitely is. I think Golang CI lint will just fail if there's a fix me. It might also fail on a to do, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't fail on nodes. So anyway, there's I think that and something else we look through doing code review. I usually look if there's any leftover to do fix me type things, and if so, I basically ask like, hey, did you intend for that to be fixed in this PR, or is it for later? In which case we probably should do with an issue or something so we can keep track of it. The Incus code base, I think, is still kind of riddled with fix me's and to-dos and stuff. Bit of a problem because we never really go to fix them. Or worse, we actually go to fix them and we forget about the command. So we actually, the to-do or fix me no longer applies because we've actually long done whatever they were referring to. So yeah, but Incus OS, as for anyone who's seen a bunch of the live streams, has a very strict config on the linters. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was complaining. And we can try it just to see. So Incus OS D. So we know that there's a to-do here. So that needs to be done. And most likely there's a to-do up here. to tweak the filling of the struct. That's kind of the two things I see. Now, if I run static analysis, does that come yelling at me? Yep, it does not allow for to-dos. So to-do, bug, and fix me looks like are being caught by the static analysis. Alrighty, I think that's gonna be it for this live stream. Sorry for the network debugging, that took way longer than I expected. I'm still not really sure what's going on with that, but it is basically working. So we got Ceph in there. We know how much space it's adding. We've got an option for how to shrink the image further. We know what the config that needs to go in there looks like, and got the boilerplate all done here, which just needs the new struct and then effectively 2 chunks of codes to just write the actual files onto disk, and then we'll have things all nice and working. So that's it for Ceph. Next up will be Linstor. I don't know if I'm gonna do that in the next stream or if I'm gonna do that off stream. Linstor will be a bit trickier because it involves extra repositories and different kernel drivers. So we'll see. It might be a bit of a weirder beast. We would basically need an extra kernel driver in the base, and then the tools to be pulled from some repository somewhere into the Incus image. So TBD, we'll see what that looks like. Right now, TrueNAS already works. We've got effectively all the tooling for the TrueNAS stuff already in Incus OS. LVM cluster works as well, and it looks like Ceph will be working in just a few days. So that will just leave us with Linstor as far as the storage, the remote storage drivers are concerned. All right, thanks a lot everyone for watching, for the great questions in the chat. If anyone watching this after the recording has any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section, or you can go on our community forum and catch up here. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.